Hello everyone, this is a video lesson of chapter 25 of Bill Bryson's Notes from a Small Island. So, chapters 25 to 29 talks about his trip to Scotland. So, the whole book, Notes from a Small Island, is his tour of England. And Bryson is originally an American writer. He had been staying in Britain for many decades, and he had been planning to return to America. And before uh, uh, he leaves for America, he wanted to uh, travel throughout England, and that is why he went on this adventure, and that is why he wrote this book, Notes from a Small Island. And from this particular book we have 5 chapters to study, chapters 25 to 29, which comprises his notes or his experiences traveling throughout Scotland. As you know, Great Britain or United Kingdom is Britain or England, Scotland and Wales together. So this last part of the book, chapters 25 to 29, talks about his experiences while traveling through Scotland. So he reaches Edinburgh. Edinburgh is the capital of Scotland, and he has been using public transport. He has been traveling by train, and he reaches Edinburgh, and he has booked a room at the Caledonian Hotel. Caledonian Hotel is a very expensive hotel. He says it was extravagant to book a room there, but he says that it is a beautiful building, a terrific building, and he wanted to stay at least one night in that particular hotel. And then he leaves his stuff in the hotel and starts exploring the city. And he feels that Edinburgh is a different country, as if it is not part of England, because the buildings were thin, and every bookshop window was full of books written by Scottish authors, or books about Scotland. So he walked along, feeling as if he had left, England, and why he there is a reason why he likes Scotland. He admires Scotland and its people. For there are many reasons. One reason, he says that Scotland produces more university students per capita than any other nation in Europe. So, and he gives a list of exceptional, people who are Scottish, and we get a list of people: R.L. Stevenson, who's an author, James Watt, then Robert Burns, Walter Scott, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, J.M. Barrie, all are writers. Adam Smith, the father of economics, Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone, John Logie Baird, the inventor of the television. So all these are familiar names, and all these people have Scottish origins. And not only that, we must be grateful to the Scots for inventing the whiskey, raincoats, bicycle pedal, telephone, penicillin. All these things are Scottish by origin. And he says that he thanks Scotland. Thank you, Scotland. And it doesn't matter whether you can qualify for the World Cup or not. So this book was written in 1995, and Scotland was not able to qualify for the 1994 World Cup. They were able to qualify for the World Cups before, but they couldn't qualify for the 94 Football World Cup. And so Bryson says that it's okay if you cannot qualify for the World Cup. You have contributed so much to the world, so not qualifying for the World Cup is nothing compared to that. So, and he goes to a pub which is called St. Andrew Square. At St. Andrew Square, a pub which is called Tiles. The name of the pub is Tiles. And he says it's a very apt name. Why? Because from floor to ceiling you can, it is covered in Victorian tiles, as if it's a bathroom. He compares it to it's he says that inside this particular pub, it seems as if you are in Prince Albert's loo. Prince Albert's loo meaning washroom or bathroom or toilet. Because of the presence of so many tiles, it feels as if you are in a toilet, but such a big toilet can only be a toilet of a prince. So that is how he compares it to. And the next day he wakes up and goes to have breakfast at the restaurant at Caledonian Hotel itself. And he finds out that a cooked breakfast, full breakfast, was 14 pounds. And well, he found it very expensive. Back in 1995, 14 pounds for a breakfast was expensive. And he withdrew his order. He had ordered breakfast, but he withdrew his offer and said that he would take a cup of coffee only. And we should remember that he's hungry, and he goes out to explore the city. And he talks about the Georgian buildings and squares, and how old buildings were refurbished and constructed, or were given modern frontages, which is very ugly. Okay, he considers it very stupid to give modern frontages to old buildings, because it doesn't match. Then he goes to Princess Street, and he's looking for a cafe, because he's hungry. He did not have breakfast from the Caledonian. And he sees the usual chain restaurants and chain outlets, the modern corporate outlets like Boots, Little Woods, Virgin Records, Marks and Spencer, Burger King, McDonald's, all these typical chain restaurants you would find in any city. So he wasn't very interested in going to any of these institutions, any of these cafes or shops. And he says that what Edinburgh lacked is a coffee house or a tea room with newspapers and music. Okay, that is what he found lacking in Edinburgh. So finally, because he was very hungry, he walked into a McDonald's, and it was very crowded. There was a line. He had to wait in the queue, and finally, when he reached the front of the queue, at the counter he ordered a cup of coffee and an egg McMuffin. And the person at the counter asked that whether he wanted a apple turnover. Apple turnover is a pastry. So the person at the counter asks Bryson whether he wants an apple turnover, and Bryson doesn't like it. Bryson he is not very keen on questions asked back. ഇപ്പോൾ എനിക്ക് വേണമെങ്കിൽ ഞാനത് പറഞ്ഞോളാം, അല്ലാതെ ഞാൻ പറയാത്തൊരു കാര്യം വേണമെന്ന് എന്നോട് ചോദിക്കേണ്ട കാര്യമില്ല. He got very angry. ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞത് മാത്രം തന്നാൽ മതി, കൂടുതൽ എന്തെങ്കിലും വേണം ഞാൻ അങ്ങോട്ട് ചോദിച്ചോളാം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞുള്ള രീതിക്ക് he got very angry. It is obvious because this guy is very hungry. And but the person at the counter was very gracious, and he said okay, fine. And then he had his food, and he went to the Royal Scottish Academy, where Scottish Academy is you can say they are the caretaker of arts, artistic paintings, sculptures, etc. So where you can see them. And you have to pay £1.5 for a ticket. And then once you go in, all the exhibits are given numbers. ഒരു ഡിസ്ക്രിപ്ഷനും ഇല്ലാതെ വെറുതെ നമ്പേഴ്സ് കൊടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ ഡിസ്ക്രിപ്ഷൻ ഇല്ലാതെ നമ്മളെങ്ങനെ വായിക്കും? അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഇന്ത്യയിലൊരു മ്യൂസിയത്തിൽ പോയി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഡിസ്ക്രിപ്ഷൻസ് കാണും എല്ലാത്തിൻ്റെയും താഴെ. പക്ഷേ ഇത് നമ്പേഴ്സേ ഉള്ളൂ. അപ്പോൾ നമ്പേഴ്സ് വന്നിട്ട് ഇവർക്കൊരു കാറ്റലോഗുണ്ട്. ആ കാറ്റലോഗിൽ ഈ ഓരോ നമ്പേഴ്സിന് ചേർത്ത് ഡിസ്ക്രിപ്ഷൻ എഴുതിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. ആ കാറ്റലോഗ് സെപ്പറേറ്റ് ഒരു 2 പൗണ്ട് കൊടുത്ത് വാങ്ങണം. സോ ദാറ്റ് ഹീ ഫൈൻസ് വെരി ഇറിറ്റേറ്റ്. 1.5 പൗണ്ട് ടിക്കറ്റ് ഓൾറെഡി പേ ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞു. സോ വൈ ഷുഡ് ഐ പേ another 2 pounds for the catalog? So he finds it very irritating and says that there should be a description, beside every work of art. Then what he does is he goes to he talks about the National Trust, which does the same thing, and then he goes to explore the exhibits, and he categorizes the exhibits. He says there are 4 kinds of exhibits: paintings, boats on beaches is one category, lonely crofts or farms is one, half-clad girlfriends engaged in their toilet means something which the process of washing is what you call a toilet എന്ന് വായിക്കരുത്, it's toilet. And what you do, the things which you use to wash yourself is are toilets. And the 4th category is French street scenes. Street how do you know it is French? Because street bakery, the French names for bakery and grocery is given, so we know that it is French. And many of the pictures were outstanding, and many of them were for sale. So കണ്ടതൊക്കെ ഇഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടതിൻ്റെയൊക്കെ പ്രൈസ് ഇദ്ദേഹം ചോദിക്കുന്നുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. And almost all of them were expensive, and finally he did not find anything within his price bracket, so he did not buy. Then he goes to the Scottish National Gallery, where entry is free, and also the description of all the exhibits is given there. So അങ്ങനെ വരുമ്പോൾ he found it very convenient, and it's a much better place. And there at this gallery, Scottish National Gallery, he spots a man and a boy about 13 who is his son. And this man, from his dress, he could understand that this man was not a well-off person. എലീറ്റ് ക്ലാസ്സിൽ പെടുന്ന ഒരാളൊന്നുമല്ല, താഴേക്കിടയിൽ പെടുന്ന ഒരാളാണ്. ഇദ്ദേഹത്തിന് എക്സിബിറ്റ്സിനെ കുറിച്ച് ഡിസ്ക്രിപ്ഷൻ്റെ ഒന്നും ആവശ്യമില്ല. ഈ ഡിസ്ക്രിപ്ഷൻ ഒന്നും നോക്കാതെ തന്നെ ഇദ്ദേഹം ഈ 13 വയസ്സുള്ള തൻ്റെ മകന് ഈ ഓരോ എക്സിബിറ്റ്സിനെ കുറിച്ച് ഡിസ്ക്രൈബ് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടേയിരിക്കുന്നു. ഓക്കെ, ആൻഡ് ബ്രൈസൺ ഈസ് impressed by the knowledge of this particular person, and this person is talking about people like painters like Francisco Goya without looking at any description or anything. And he says that he has been often struck by this particular quality of Britain. അതായത് താഴേക്കിടയിലുള്ള ആൾക്കാരാണെങ്കിൽ പോലും അവർ വളരെ നോളജബിളാണ്. ഈവൻ എലീറ്റ് ക്ലാസ്സിലുള്ളവരെക്കാളും നോളജാണ് ലോവർ ക്ലാസ് ആൾക്കാർക്കുള്ളത് എന്നൊരഭിപ്രായം ഇദ്ദേഹം പറയും. And he gives certain examples. He talks about this particular show called Mastermind, where you can choose a field of your own, and then they will ask questions based on that particular field. And he says that most of the people who win the grand final of Mastermind are people who are engine drivers, അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ ഉള്ള അല്ലെ ക്യാബ് ഡ്രൈവേഴ്സ്, ഇങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ ഉള്ള ആൾക്കാരാണ് ഇതുപോലുള്ള നോളജബിൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഷോസിലൊക്കെ അപ്പോൾ വിജയിക്കുന്നതൊക്കെ. സോ ദിസ് ഈസ് സംതിങ് വിച്ച് ഇസ് he finds impressive about Britain. Then he goes to Edinburgh Castle, and he suddenly gets a feeling that I have seen this place before. There are things which have changed, but I have seen this place before. Then he remembers that he saw it in a documentary which was released in 1953. This is Sinirama എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞൊരു documentary film which was released in 1953 or 52. അതിൽ ഈ എഡിൻബറോ കാസിൽ കാണിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. ദിസ് ഇസ് സിനിഡമ്മ ഇസ് എ വെരി ഫേമസ് ഡോക്യുമെൻ്ററി ബിക്കോസ് വൈറ്റ് സ്ക്രീൻ ആദ്യമായിട്ട് കാണിച്ചത് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കൊണ്ടുവന്നത് ഈ പർട്ടിക്കുലർ ഡോക്യുമെൻ്ററി ഫിലിമിലാണ്. അന്ന് വരെ സ്ക്വയർ ഇതായിരുന്നു അത് വൈഡ് സ്ക്രീൻ ആയത് ഈ സിനിമ ഈ പർട്ടിക്കുലർ ഡോക്യുമെൻ്ററിയിലാണ് ആദ്യം അത് ഷോക്കേസ് ചെയ്തത്. Then he talks about Princess Street, and he's very critical of Princess Street because many old buildings which were earlier there has been torn down, and it has been replaced by tasteless ugly buildings, concrete bunker like buildings. And he says that this is very bad. Beautiful 18th century buildings has been bulldozed and replaced by ugly shopping centers and hotel complexes, which is very bad. And he says that in his AA book of British towns, AA publishers were a famous group of publishers. In that book it is given an artist's illustration of central Edinburgh as seen from the air, and in that illustration the old buildings are shown, but unfortunately the old buildings have been torn down. And he says that you cannot destroy all these old buildings and then pretend that they are still there. Okay, this is not how you do it. This is not how you plan a city, and that is not how you do things. And that is how he ends the first chapter number 25.